Hey everybody, hope you are all doing well. It is Wednesday, and you'll notice that it's me talking and not John, as John is not able to produce a video today, as he has had a number of troubles with plumbing at his house on top of all the projects going on at school. So I'm filling in for John today. So I'm sorry for you all, but you're stuck with me for 3 days in a row. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. So when Jesus started his earthly ministry, he picked 12 people to follow him very closely, and these people are known as his 12 disciples. And now I commend the disciples for pretty much dropping whatever they were doing to follow Jesus. And they didn't really have a lot to go off of either on this choice, this decision to drop all that they had to follow Jesus, as people weren't really sure who this Jesus guy was in the first place. And so near the beginning of Jesus' ministry, after he picked his 12 disciples, his disciples and himself went on a boat as they were leaving a crowd. And on this particular day, the weather was not so great. It was a stormy night. And we can read about this in Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. And it reads, "On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, 'Let us go across to the other side.' And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, 'Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?' And he awoke and rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, 'Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?' And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, 'Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?'" So this is a pretty neat story of Jesus and his disciples going on for a boat ride, as there was a great storm in the middle of the night, and it was bad enough that water was seeping into their boat. And the disciples, which I can understand why, the disciples, they started to have fear. They had fear as there was a big storm and water was seeping into their boat, and so the boat would soon start to sink, and it was a recipe for disaster. And so the disciples, they had great fear in the situation, and so they went to Jesus, their master, and they saw him just asleep, and they said, "Jesus, don't you even care that we are all about to die?" They thought that Jesus didn't even care. So you see now, Jesus had some information that the disciples did not have at that time. The disciples did not know that Jesus was in total control of the situation, as God gave Jesus the power to calm the storm. But the disciples, they didn't know this at this time. So, of course, with the power of God, as we read, Jesus calmed the storm, as he said, "Peace, be still," and the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Which that would have been awesome to see, just the storm, and all of a sudden Jesus speaks to the storm, and he speaks peace into existence, and the storm subsides, and there is peace and calm throughout the sea. That would have been awesome to see. But what I also like is it seemed as if the disciples still weren't 100% sure who Jesus really was, as they asked, "Who is this guy that even the wind and the sea obey him?" But now, what does this story mean for us? Well, certainly it feels like what we're going through now with the coronavirus. It certainly feels like a storm in a figurative sense. But now, fortunately for us, we can learn from the example in Mark chapter 4 and the example of the disciples. And we have to realize that ultimately, God is in control, just like he was in the story of this great storm in the middle of the night. As in Mark chapter 4, God gave Jesus the power to calm the storm, as God was in total control. And one day, this storm of the coronavirus is going to calm down. We aren't exactly sure. We're not sure if this is going to pop up again in the winter, or if it repeats itself or not. We don't know. But one day, this storm of the coronavirus, it is going to calm down. However, unfortunately, we are not yet at that point where it has calmed down, at least here in the United States. And so in the meantime, while we're dealing with this storm, while we are in the middle of the storm of the coronavirus, we have to put our trust in God. And unfortunately, there's not much more that we can do other than putting our trust in God and being smart and praying. But ultimately, we need to be putting our trust in God, that God is going to take care of it all. And so I'd like to encourage you all this evening to just remember to stay calm. And no matter what life throws at you, whether it be the struggles of dealing with the coronavirus, the death of a loved one, the loss of a job, loss of a home, whatever it may be, remember that God is in 100% control. And I know oftentimes that it does not feel like God is in control, but we have to remember that God is in control and God has got your back. Thank you all, and I will see you all tomorrow.